This week on Change Mode, we talk about emails, Agile, GTD, meetings, and more with the illustrious John Miller. You won't want to miss this one. This is Change Mode, episode number 2, recorded April 30th, 2014. Outlook has tasks? Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2, number 2. We're official now. Episode 2 of the Change Mode show. I'm here with my co-host, Dan Miller, as usual. He's live from New York. I'm Colby Rabideau. And today we're joined by a very prestigious guest, John Miller. He's
no
up
relation, sadly.
Oh, yeah. Only in that they're both awesome. But John's joining us from Seattle, where he works at Microsoft. And we are all Marist alumni, so very exciting.
Also, I would say that 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 1, so we are the 1%.
Yes. Now we just have to. It's like 99% of that, or it's 1% of that 1% that people actually watch. So we just got to get into the other 1%, and then we'll be good.
If that, yeah.
Indeed. So today John is here to help us talk about getting shit done, and we'll see how that goes. And before we start, just to mention, we're part of the Coffee and Beer Podcast Network, and the network's launching officially on May 1st, which is like tomorrow? ?
Yeah.
Which is super cool, and in honor of Coffee and Beer's launch, we're giving away a ton of swag. So you should go to coffeeandbeer.tv/giveaway and enter the promo code JavaScript.
Get it? Code? That joke makes even more sense now.
I didn't even do that on purpose. Yeah, but I think that's all the formalities. So we should get to it.
Yeah. So, Colby and I recently graduated from college. John Miller relatively recently graduated from college, but now he's a quarter of a century old, so a little less recently than us. And one of the things that
it's John's birthday, so
that's right.
John.
So everyone sing internal happy birthday to John. So one of the things that I struggled with a lot when I got an actual job, and I think this will end up being a theme on all of our shows that have topics. The problems always come in when you did college, you had all these projects which were relatively practical, hopefully, but it was you, or maybe it was you and someone else, or maybe it was you and a third person, and then only 2 of those people actually did something. But that was the extent of collaboration. Whereas in real life, it's like you and 5 people, and then your entire org is like maybe 50 people. And how do you get things done with never mind the programming? What about all the meetings? What about all the other things that you're asked to do now that you're don't have 5 other classes going on? What about all that stuff? So we have a vague list of topics we're going to talk about. We're going to try to go through them-ish, but if we take a tangent, we can take tangents. Don't feel a need, y'all, to stick to the agenda items.
I agree.
Agenda item number 1. This is something that people debate a lot, and that I don't get caught up in, but a lot of people do, so I thought I'd put it down. Question 1. So I guess the question is, when do you read emails, and how often do you read emails? Are emails things that you just read in the morning and then shut off? Do you only read them at the end? Why do you do these things? And once someone gives a reasonable answer, I can give my totally unreasonable answer as to how I handle this.
Kind of curious about the unreasonable answer.
Well, that's called a tease.
It's called a tease.
I'm awesome.
I kind of have an unreasonable one, too, where I have 0 unread in my inbox at all time.
Okay, so you're an inbox 0 person.
I can't have anything in any of my folders at all.
I'm with you there. Like, I get incredibly stressed out if there are any like little red things on the Outlook icon. I'm freaking out.
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing I can do about it. But
Okay. So here's my unreasonable answer, and I just recently met someone else who does this. I treat email as like a Facebook news feed or a Twitter stream. Stuff comes in, I may or may not look at it, but nothing leaves. It just is an unboundedly growing queue.
So, fun fact, there's actually an end to your news feed. So, like, if you scrolled far enough, you would get to the end. Like,
But
it doesn't
my news feed is unboundedly growing.
Yes, it is. But
just like any queue.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of email every day?
I get a fair amount, but so here's what I do. I guess regularly, but on no particular schedule. Like if I just can't look at the code anymore or I have downtime, I will check my email. I won't not check my email, which is something other people do. They just like, I'm not checking it. I will check it, and I'll quickly glance through all of the emails. Gmail, I use Gmail at work, and it highlights things that are important, and it actually does a really good job. I'll usually click on all of the ones that it marks as important and read them. The other ones, I will glance at the subjects and then mark all as read, and then carry on with my day.
Fair enough.
That's a unique way of going about it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm told.
So I have an interesting problem in that at Facebook we use Facebook to Facebook. So like, in addition to my email, there's also my newsfeed, which is like what you're describing, like a stream of people like discussing in various internal groups about Facebook things.
You bring up an interesting point, though, which is email is only one method of communication. So there's email, there's instant messenger of various formats. Maybe there's also some form of group chat, which may or may not be the same as the instant messenger. Then there's the, what's that? Yammer or Facebook's Facebook. All of these things that you're expected to be tapped into. So how do you handle that deluge of information?
Yeah, so I've actually I've hit since I started working in, I don't know, when did I start? In August, I've hit 3 breaking points with my, all right, preface this. We have, in addition to just regular emails that you'll get from people, we also have emails that several of our internal tools send out emails, and that's their primary way of notifying you of something you need to know about. So we have, most notably, we have a task tool and our code review tool, both of which send out emails. So if someone adds you as a reviewer on a code review, you'll get an email about that. And if someone assigns a task to you, you'll get an email about that. The problem with those is that they also send you email about minor annoying updates. So every time someone changes a tag on a task, you get an email. So at one point, probably it was after I was done with boot camp. So after 6 weeks in, and probably about a month or two into actually working with my team, I was I can't see any real emails through the task notifications. So I had to set up a filter that sent my task emails to their own task folder. And this week, literally today, this afternoon, I hit the same point with the code review tool where I just couldn't see anything else through the code reviews. So I had to set up another folder that all that stuff goes to automatically. So now I'm at I don't know, today, just this afternoon, my inbox has been stress free.
You said you guys use Outlook, right?
We do, yeah.
Creating rules in Outlook is fantastic. I have 40 folders set up. If I'm not on the to or CC line, it doesn't go to my inbox.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do any of that either. I have 2 rules. The thing that goes into my inbox and the thing that goes into the folder that I don't see ever. it's like just above the spam folder. So every code review that is a reply, so our code review thing is kind enough to preface things that aren't like, hey, this is a new code review and you're on it as RE. All of those get thrown into the thing because I'm going to read through your code review. I'm going to write my comments, and I'm not going to open it again unless you ask me to, or unless a new one shows up, which is a new iteration of the thing. I don't care what everyone else says about it, unfortunately, because I don't have the time to read them all and respond cogently. But I don't do any fancy labels or filters or smart inboxes or any of that. I'm just the worst person in the world, really.
Yeah, it's like I want to be that way. Like I want to be of the philosophy that like if something's really important, you'll send me a Facebook message about it, and if not, I just may or may not get to it ever. But like the problem that I have is that like what we have like on-call rotations for our team, so I do that like 1 week out of the month. There's 4 of us that work on like web stuff, so 1 week out of the month on the on-call, and the primary way for people to direct things to you as the on-call is to assign a task to you, and so like I have to check like at least that 1 week out of the month. I have to check my email because Facebook could be broken and like. So nobody's there to fix it.
Yeah.
I solved that problem, the on-call problem. Well, I thought I had solved it. Luckily, I was on call 3 times before I had an incident assigned to me. But I thought I had solved it because the PagerDuty would not only send me an email, but it would also text me, and I had the PagerDuty app, and it was supposed to send me a notification. It turns out that only 2 of those 3 things happened when the incident was assigned. I leave it as an exercise to the reader to get to which one of those failed. The app. But that way, like, I didn't have to check my email. I'd also get the text. I don't know if your thing has that.
I feel like on-call is just hashtag website problems.
Yeah, that's true.
Being a client app, we don't have on-call. We just have tons of bugs.
So, speaking of bugs, there's the email. Do either Microsoft or Facebook, are they big into like a group chat? So like where your team would have a group chat or something like that?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have like, I mean, we have IRC and we also have Facebook messages, and sometimes like
Colby just drove off.
I apologize for the people immediately outside the window. We do have like once in a while we'll use like a Facebook message as a group chat. If like something's going terribly wrong. It's usually like when we're not at the office and something bad is happening. That's when like they break out the group chats. Otherwise, like I think most teams lean pretty heavily on like Facebook groups to do stuff, which is good and bad because like it's sort of asynchronous and sort of not, and also sort of like in my news feed, so it makes Facebook not fun. But
John, does Microsoft use any like? So they bought Yammer, right? Is Yammer a thing that Microsoft uses a lot internally, or something like it?
A lot of teams do. Like, Yammer is hugely active with a bunch of teams. My team, not really. We're more an email team, but I know tons of teams actually do use a lot of Yammer. I just don't.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is Yammer? I know that's a name I know, but I don't know what it is.
It's like the Facebook for like corporations. So you can create groups, you can have news feeds, you can send what they call yams, I think. It's kind of cool.
Chuck a yam at someone.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool because it has like security built in, so you can send people files and not have to worry about like everyone seeing it or like someone breaking in. So it's actually really cool, but my team is still like, we have tons of distribution groups on Outlook, and this kind of like a link to ping people, send us messages and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Etsy is huge on the group chats. They actually just did a internal research project on this, and by they I mean the senior vice president of operations and a Perl script. But there are almost everyone in the company is on IRC, which is pretty incredible. Like HR people and marketing people are on IRC, which is mind blowing. It's because it turns out writing your own user-friendly IRC client that keeps state and stays connected, and like you can hover over people's names and it shows up like their picture and where their office is, and so that helped a lot. But there are hundreds of channels, and over a 2-week period, one of the facts they observed is that when things were phrased in the form of a question, someone replied directly to that person with an answer within user-friendly IRC clients. I forget what it was. It was sub 1 minute time.
Wow.
Which is really cool. So what we use it for two things. We use it to be able to have this weird thing that's in between email and going to someone's desk, where I'm on Team X and I have a question for Team Y. I can join the Team Y channel and ask everyone. Many of them might ignore it, but if someone's available, it's compiling, they're eating lunch or whatever, they might answer my question immediately, and I don't have to go hunting around like, oh, I have a question about this and this. Do you know who I should ask? Or, hey, friend, have you ever met someone on this team? Do you know who might know? So that's really helpful. But we also use it to keep state on, and this is a website problem, but to keep state on the state of the website. So there's IRC commands that we've built so that you can do things like, check on the status of servers and change the status of servers. So if you're doing an experiment on a web server, you can say, I'm going to nag this server at being worked on, and anyone can check the status after that and see that you're the one who's working on that. So if someone sees something really weird. So all this does is create a time series of these events automatically. So you can go back in postmortems, which we have all the time, and say, well, when that bad thing happened, what preceded it? And a lot of what happened, whether it was a conversation or a question, a code review, or some other command, would have happened in IRC.
Cool.
Which is, it's been really helpful. It can get really overwhelming, though, because you want to be in all these IRC channels. Like, I was in the data science team IRC channel today, which was fascinating. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I was like reading about all of these p-values and things, and it was so cool. But it didn't have anything to do with what I was doing. So there are pros and cons to that. What do big companies call it? Knowledge sharing or something like that. Helps.
Yeah, we kind of use distribution groups in Outlook for that. Like we have our chat client called Link, which kind of does the same thing. You hover over someone's name, it tells you if they're online, offline, like a bunch of information about them. But we really use group chat for like which building should we go to lunch today, like where should we go to lunch, who's in, that kind of thing. But if we have a question, it's kind of like we send out to a distribution group and it goes to everyone's inbox, but they can move that out to a folder and no one can see it. So that's kind of an issue. But
cool.
That's cool.
So segueing back, unless you have something to add, Colby.
No, I was just going to say, like, we do have IRC and we use it, like, there are certain things like push coordination and stuff is all done in IRC, and we have like various IRC bot tools, but we like, it seems even since I was an intern in 2012, it seems like the company has moved off of IRC more and more to Facebook messages, which is like good and bad. I like IRC because it's like really engaging, but also easy to ignore if you want to ignore it. Like, my phone doesn't ring when I get pinged on IRC.
Yeah.
But I guess It is what it is. That was all though.
It's
Okay.
good to dog food your own chat messaging program, though. That's kind of nice.
It
Yeah.
is. We do dog food it pretty hard. So
Just so everyone knows, dog food is the industry insider term for using a thing that you built as it's meant to be used, so that you are the user of the thing. Because that can sound weird if you don't know what it means. But anyways, going back to speaking of bugs, so talking about bugs is a big part of being a programmer at a company. So my question for y'all is, are bugs tasks? Are bugs and tasks two different things? How do you track bugs? Is it different than how you track tasks? That's question number one. And then we'll evolve that into probably a discussion on how your teams get, the overall workflow. So like you get up in the morning, you go to work, you sit down, like does your team have a meeting, things like that. But first, tracking defects and tasks, how does it work? John,
Well,
at least
sure, I'll go first. At least for us, we used to have two different systems for bugs and tasks, but we're like, that's kind of silly. Let's just make one place for all this. So we have bugs and tasks in the same sort of database. Everyone kind of just like I have a little program that sits on my desktop, and I obviously run Windows, so it's up near like the minimize button. And it kind of shows me how many bugs I have opened and assigned to me, how many tasks I have assigned to me, and how many I'm waiting to be closed. So it's kind of like a little reminder every day of like how much work I have to do in the meantime. So it can be good and it can be bad, but it's kind of a way I have to track, like how's our progress doing, that kind of thing.
And who creates these bugs?
Really anyone. Anyone in the company can just be like, oh, I found a problem with OneDrive. Let me go and file a bug, and here's what happened, and assign it to them. And we have a team that triages all our bugs. Actually, my manager and all his peers go and they say, this bug looks like it's this priority. Let's assign it to this person because they own that code path. But really, anyone can open a bug on anyone in the company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's just a database. There's no that's not a product that anyone could use.
Well, we use TFS, so it's
Okay.
kind of like our tool that we publish worldwide. So
that has bug tracking in it.
Yeah, it has bug tracking. It has feature tracking. It has everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Colby, how about you? Bugs, tasks, who makes them? How do you get them?
bugs and tasks. So we have a similar thing in place where like any employee can file a bug, in that like bugs and tasks are technically two different things, but employee bugs are immediately filed as tasks.
So what's the difference between a bug and a task? Maybe I should have led with that.
So a task is something to do. Like you would imagine, as you might be able to imagine, we get far more bugs than we would ever be able to process in tasks. Counting user bug reports. So there's this whole system that handles like user bug reports, and they do this what is it called? They do clustering on the bug reports, so like they try and like intelligently suss out like these related bug reports, so we can see like spikes in things that are broken from user bug reports, which is really interesting. And then so on our team there's a product specialist on our team he's really awesome, and basically what he does is like make sure stuff's not broken, and he's like the first line of triage for the bug reports as they come in from employees. And from there, usually whoever's on call will be working with him to handle bugs as they come in. And then we kind of decide how important they are to fix from there.
So, what about that part? Who's we, and how do you decide?
It depends. We is like some combination of the engineers who own it, which is usually like one or two people. and like the product specialist or one of our PMs or something, it's like something that's like the padding on this isn't right is a lot less of a big deal than like people can't post on their iPhones.
That would be a problem.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing.
Okay.
But it's like there's certainly not a defined system, really. It's kind of at least I often feel like we're flying by the seat of our pants. Like,
yeah, and I can say for my part that on my team it kind of depends where you're at in the life cycle of things. So we build infrastructure, but all the infrastructure we built last year we're still maintaining. So for those things, Etsy largely uses Jira, although different teams use Trello, some use Basecamp. It doesn't really matter, but my team's policy is if you're going to file a bug, file it on Jira, and we'll get to it, which is not a strong contract and should be way better. But for example, I'm building a new thing right now, so we have no users, and I'm sitting right next to the other guy I'm working on with it. So there is no bug tracking. It's just like, oh, look, this doesn't work anymore. It used to work yesterday. So not ideal. Part of the reason why I wanted to have this episode is selfish. In fact, maybe that was the entire reason, because I feel like I am doing all of the wrong things. Maybe for some of the right reasons. Like, is it worth having a huge system for a team of 2 people? I don't know. But if a larger set of a team of 150 people, I feel like maybe there should be. I'm not sure. So we get in these bugs. John has them prioritized for him, which is amazing. Colby prioritizes them sometimes. I prioritize them never. Pretty much everything I've ever seen has been at P3, which is the default that it's created at.
Which means it won't fix.
I think, I think we're kind of in a middle ground right now, because like we're certainly past the point where there's like one person who's working on stuff and like he can track all his things, his to-dos in like a notebook. It's like I mean, I work on a team of like probably 20 people, and like we have like a project manager and like a regular manager, and like they all need to know about stuff, and there's all kinds of things. So like our tasks, like the task system is certainly important. But that being said, like if I could not ever use it again for anything, I would be thrilled, because it takes up a lot of time.
Okay. So your teams have these systems. So Team Foundation or whatever the Facebook one is, or Jira. What about personally? So like defects with your product are only one part of what you do at work probably. You might be involved in like intern hiring or, committee on X or, whatever it is. There are things not involved programming. Do you have a personal system separate from the defect tracking that you use? Like, is it a to-do list? Is it the super formalized getting things done? Is it something else? So you come into work personally, how do you suss out what you're going to do for the day or for the week?
That's a tough one. At least for me, I usually kind of look up the priority list. So when I say about bugs I prioritize, they're kind of like the triage team takes a look and puts them into a bucket of like P0 as in, oh shit, something is burning, go fix it. And then there's like P1 of like, something's pretty broken, we should fix this, and on and on from there. So it's kind of like, do I have anything that I need to fix right now, get this in, and all that. Other than that, it's kind of like self-prioritizing of what do I feel is the best use of my time at this point. Except if we're coding, then it's kind of like if we're in the middle of a coding milestone where I'm writing new features, it's kind of like, unless something is seriously broken, or there's some user is coming to us and saying something got deleted and all my stuff is gone, it's kind of like feature work. So it really depends, and it's really up to the engineers to kind of figure out what they should be doing at that time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Like I never thought about it that way, but like I guess one of the downsides of like, you know, we release once a week. Well, really we release twice a day, but like we have one big release once a week. So like things are broken once a week. So we have to like fix the things that we broke on Tuesday. It like, and so, I mean, some weeks are worse than others, but like that's a decent chunk of time that is spent like, you know, fixing the stuff that you broke or figuring out the stuff that you broke, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about shipping to, you know, 1 billion people in the world is when something breaks, you hear about it real quick.
Oh, yeah.
The number of bugs in the company is just absurd because there's so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Colby, the advantage to shipping 60 times a day is that everything's always broken and you're always fixing it.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I really enjoyed that. The thing I liked about that is that, like, yeah, you broke stuff. Like when I interned at Etsy, like I broke stuff pretty frequently. But like the thing was that like fixing it was as easy as fixing it and then just deploying it myself. Like there was no.
Fixing
I was not
just as easy as breaking it.
Right. I was not beholden to anyone else to like fix it. I didn't have to wait for anything. There was no like I didn't have to wait for anything or get it done. Like there was no time restriction on how long it would be before I could fix it or when I needed to fix it by, which was very in hindsight was very liberating.
That's kind of nice. Like, cause if someone breaks the build for us, like someone, you know, checks something in and somehow the build comes the next day and something's broken, kind of hoses the entire team because it takes about like 8 hours to build Windows. So if something's broken, you're just kind of like, well, crap. We're not going to be able to just kick off a new build because it takes 8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
it's
our static asset build takes like 5 minutes, and I thought that was a long time.
Yeah, not when you have to build an entire build of Windows. That takes a long time.
Fair enough.
But aside from programming, are there things that you're involved in that aren't programming, and is that so I guess it's because I'm having this problem where I feel like some weeks it's almost half and half, where half the time I'm programming and half the time I'm doing something else. Like we have meetings about intern hiring, or interviewing people is a huge time sink if your team is doing interviews. How do you... So I guess for the interviewing people problem, it's less of a challenge because it's scheduled for you. And meetings, I guess, are also scheduled for you. I don't know. So it sounds like you two are just kind of, you're in the defect tracker, or you have a good mental model of what's happening based on the defect tracker and your understanding of the product, and that's like, that feeds you for the day and gets you along pretty well.
See, like it does, but the problem is like all the other stuff that I have to do in addition to fixing bugs and like just programming, like I mean even just reviewing code, right? Like we have to, I mean we don't have to, but very often like if I don't review code that people are changing like in my little corner of the code base, like someone else will review it and it may not be something I'm happy about. So it's like, it's like,
yeah,
that's the kind of thing. Like, I don't want to do it immediately because, I don't want to let it distract me from what I'm doing in the immediate present, but I also need to do it in a timely fashion, which can be hard sometimes. And also, I don't know, like, I wonder, like, what are you guys, like, meeting situations like? Because, I don't know, I've had, so, since I switched teams in January, I switched from a more infrastructure team to a product team, and on my own team, we basically had like one meeting a week, which was great. We had, took 45 minutes every week, and everyone talked about what they were doing, and that was pretty much it. With rare exceptions to like suss out things with other people we were working with. But since I've joined a product team, there have been a lot more. So it's been interesting, and I feel like I've gotten to a point where I need to do something to like give myself blocks of time where I can just like program without being distracted. And I don't know, like I've been considering like scheduling blocks of time on my calendar where I'm busy, like to write code.
I know plenty of people who do that.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
We try and do that.
Sorry, John?
I say, go ahead. You can go ahead.
I haven't felt the meeting pain yet. I mean, there's some weeks where, like, I have meetings. So going back through my calendar, last week was pretty good. I had one meeting on Monday, no meetings on Tuesday, 2 meetings on Wednesday, and 2 meetings on Thursday, and 1 meeting on Friday. And that's pretty good, all things considered. The week before was like practically covered in blue, where the longest stretch I had was from 4 to 7 before a meeting. That doesn't really count. From 1 to 3, like that was as long as it got that week. So, but like realistically, there's not much I can do about that. 2 of those meetings that crazy work week were postmortems that I had to go to. One of them was meeting this guy from Facebook that I wanted to go to, and yeah. So my team we do pseudo agile, which I'm not convinced means anything, but we do have stand-ups once a day. And so just so everyone knows, stand-up is everyone on the team stands up, hence the term, and you talk about what you did yesterday, what your problems were, and what you plan to do today, I think. I don't know if that's the canonical agile definition of a stand-up, but that's what we do. And then twice a week, we have half an hour show and tells. So my team has multiple projects. Each team every other week has one of these half-hour blocks to discuss whatever they want. It can be a discussion on the architecture, what they're working on. It can be just shut up, I'm going to tell you how this works. It can be a shut up, I want to tell you how this works, and then you can ask questions at the end. Or we can skip it entirely, which we do sometimes. So that's the only regular meetings that we have. So Colby, do you have regular meetings way more often than that? Like scheduled, reoccurring meetings that fill up your calendar?
So as far as reoccurring meetings go, we have. So I do every Monday morning. Me and the sort of the most senior engineer in the web corner of our team, and I have like a one-on-one for half an hour where we like talk about the last week and what's going on and what's going on.
I have a one-on-one once a week too. I totally forgot.
Yeah, which is like that's my favorite meeting of the week. That's a great meeting, because we're like generally on the same page with things, and it's I guess he knows what's going on mostly, and I also we work on kind of the same stuff, so it's like just getting in sync there. So that's a good one. That one starts my week off, which I like a lot. And then we have a stand-up on Thursdays.
Interesting.
And then
how long is a stand-up that happens only once a week?
Just 15 minutes. So it's interestingly enough, I think the reason we only do it once a week, for a while we did it twice a week. For a while we did it on Tuesday and Thursday. And I think the reason that we only do it once a week is because there are four people who work on web on our team. I work on mobile web effectively by myself. No one else works on that. And and then like one guy works on like almost entirely dedicated to like infrastructure-y things, and then the other two guys kind of go back and forth on the desktop web stuff and doing infrastructure stuff. So we're generally working in our own like little silos. Like my work almost never affects anyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why we do that. But then we have like a bi-weekly like grader team. It's called a scrum. I don't think it's, I mean, certainly it's similarly probably pseudo agile. Not really. But then like, so the thing that gets me is the non-regular meetings. It's like the planning meetings. We also have these like cut planning meetings, and then cut planning checkups, and then pre-cut thing. I don't know. It's that, which those I think are more for the organizers of our team, like the PMs and things, to like sort of align what we're doing, the web team is doing, with the native teams. Like iOS and Android have a much different release thing than we do.
Right.
Because they release once a month, and so there's a lot more pressure there. But I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's the non-regular ones that get me.
And John, how do you break down on regular and non-regular meetings? How does your team meet regularly, and what are those meetings for?
We used to have Scrum and stand-up, but it would usually come down to everyone would say, I'm working on this, I'm going to work on this, and then, you know, it'd take 5 minutes, and then everyone would kind of start talking about nothing in particular for the next 25. So we were just like, this is useless for everyone. Because we kind of have the culture where if you're blocked on something or something happens, you just like go talk to the person in charge of that. Because everyone kind of knows who is the owner for each part of the code. So that's really where most of the time comes. We don't really have a lot of scheduled meetings. It's more of like something broke or someone has a question, you have to take like a half hour, an hour, and sit down and be like, okay, you know, like here's how it works in this way, and here's how it reacts in these certain situations, stuff like that. But then like this week I've had like 6 meetings in 3 days or 2 days, and it depends on the week. But recurring meetings aren't really that big.
So your team doesn't have any recurring meetings now?
No. We tried it, and then we were just like, this isn't being very useful for us.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people do you like work with, or I don't know?
So the dev team for my product is about 10 to 15 people on just the one application, and then we had like 20 people helping test it, and then another like 10, 12 people as PMs. So we had a decent sized team. Overall, my team is like 50, 60 people for just the one part of the product. So decent sized team.
Yeah, definitely. I could see how like regular meetings would also get out of hand, possibly.
Oh yeah.
Too.
Especially since we have such a huge range of personalities on the team, where we would just end up like, you know, kind of making fun of someone, and they're just kind of like giving it right back, and then this turns into this huge, you know, ridiculous thing of everyone just kind of tooling on each other, and then we look and it's like 25 minutes later, and we're like, we should probably actually say what we meant to say here. So yeah, we don't really do those that often.
I think we're all experiencing this problem though of that our teams don't work on our, like, there's the team, and then you, or maybe you and one other person, are working on something that's kind of almost separate from what everyone else is working on. So, like, at stand-up, I agree, John, like, I'll often say, oh, I'm doing this and this in this component that only me and this other guy work on, and this sucked, but then we fixed it, and today we're going to do this. And I'm not convinced how valuable that is. I do, like, occasionally I'll hear something that someone else says, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I totally tried that. You should not, no, don't spend any more time trying to do it that way. You should look at this thing. But those moments are rare relative to how often we have a stand-up. Just because, like, I'm working on this project, and so this piece of infrastructure, and someone else is working on streaming real-time database lines from the database to the search cluster, and that has absolutely no overlap with what I'm doing at all. It's interesting, but and nothing I say is really going to affect them at this point, and vice versa.
Yeah,
and it sounds like you were the same, Colby, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of us, like, we have a very contained code base where even if I change something, it's going to affect someone else. But we try and mitigate that ahead of time. Where when we're like designing new features and stuff, the dev kind of writes up what we're going to do, and like we prototype it, and we kind of present that to the rest of the developers and be like, hey, does anyone have a problem with this? Is this going to break anything else? So we
Is that a code review?
No, it's before code. It's before we even start writing code. So we prototype it, and then we're kind of just like, oh, here's a PowerPoint for like 10 minutes of what we're going to do. Here's the overall design, that kind of stuff. So people can be like, that's going to break what I'm going to do, or things like that. And then when we actually implement it, we do send out code reviews and do all that. But we try and front load it to avoid any conflicts as early as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. In a way, like, so let me think for 30 seconds about what I'm trying to say here.
Would you like someone else to say something else while you're thinking, or are you good?
No, I got it.
Okay.
So one of the weird things about what I've been working on the past couple of months is that the things I change don't affect people on my team, but there are a lot of people in other places around the company that they do affect, and that's strange. Because like they're mostly people I don't know and have never talked to and probably won't talk to before I change it. Maybe that's a problem. I don't know. I never really thought about it that way.
Do you ever put those people on your code reviews?
Yeah, I try to, but it's well, some of the challenges we're sorting through right now or I'm sorting through right now are interesting and probably a topic for another show. Because I've learned a lot because it's hard. But yeah. So I do like when I know who to put on my code reviews, I certainly put them on my code reviews. And we actually have like our code review tool will try and like guess like people that should be included and automatically CC them like based on the files you're changing, which is pretty awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, like we have a bunch of infrastructure that kind of like prevents us from breaking other people in the system. Like in Windows, we can check in all we want, but then in order for it to go to everyone else, because you have to branch and break things down evenly. Like not everyone checks into the same place. In order to like send it to other teams, it has to go through all these tests that say, did you break anyone else? Like, is there a statistically significant change to other parts of the system? And if so, it's like, nope, this doesn't go through. You got to look at this and make sure you didn't break something. So it kind of like we have regression testing so many different places to prevent that.
Yeah, we don't. We all check into the same thing.
Yeah, I chuckled to myself when you said, well, we all obviously don't just push right to trunk. I was like,
I mean, we may branch to a fault, but we have branches. we have like jungles.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else to say on programming productivity in a company?
I don't know. It's hard. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Can we go through quick and like, so like I don't use anything like outside of our internal tools to like keep my own brain organized. Do you guys use anything like just a personal Trello or something? Or Dan, I know I've heard you talk about OmniFocus before, so maybe really.
So yeah, I sudo GTD, and that I read the Getting Things Done book by that guy who wrote it that I'll look up while I'm talking. And I downloaded OmniFocus because our CEO sent out So our CEO created this GTD email group that I joined because I thought it might be interesting, and then he wrote this whole post on how he uses OmniFocus. And OmniFocus is a beautiful iOS app, and I was like, sweet, I will download this, and because it is beautiful, I will use it more, which is slightly true. The book was written by David Allen. The things I've really taken from it are, at any point in the day, I have my phone or there's a desktop app. At any point in the day when I think of something like, oh, it'd be really cool if in the future we tried to switch out mod PHP with FPM. Like, that's an idea. Stick it in here. Forget about it. Dan's brain, don't think about that anymore. You can't do it right now, but later, just like talk about it with like your tech lead and, something, keep it in there. That's probably a good idea. Things like that. Emails that come in that are going to take a significant amount of time to respond to, whether it's a code review or some prose, God forbid, that you have to write. That goes in there, and I'll probably do it later unless I'm feeling the need to do it now. Like, usually when I'm checking emails because I'm too tired of looking at the code, but by the time I read that, I'm like, oh God, I have to write a paragraph. I'm going to go back to coding. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The killer feature of OmniFocus for me is you can set due dates and start dates, which I don't use. I only use due dates. And you can use the forecast view. So the forecast view lays out your week. It integrates with a calendar, whether it's any kind of calendar that has that CalDAV support. It integrates with your calendar, and it shows the days of the week, your calendar, and the tasks that you have set due for yourself on each day. So on Monday morning, I'll look over my forecast and see what's happening. The other killer feature is that it has this review tool. So at the end of the week, I do review, and I go through all of my projects that have tasks in them or the ones that don't, and I take an action on the project. I either say, yes, this project is still ongoing, or I have completed this project and remove it. I don't want to see it anymore. Or I'm not doing this project anymore, kill it and kill all the tasks inside of it. I'm giving up, which happens often, like you're like, oh, this is going to be great. I have to change this. I have to change this. I have to change this. And then you find out later that, oh, I actually shouldn't do this at all. Just throw them all out. Who cares? So I'm sure you could implement that same sort of system for yourself with paper, with email, with anything. But the keys for me are looking ahead at the week at the beginning and then closing stuff out at the end.
Yeah.
We just kind of use TFS for that. We just kind of we have open items that we have to do, and you can put stuff in, take stuff out. And then if you need like a brain dump, we use OneNote for everything. We have tons of OneNotes that are shared between the team and all that stuff, but it's mainly just TFS and OneNote for brain dumps. Yeah,
and the key, though, for me is that I review it twice a week, at the beginning and at the end. Otherwise, it just accumulates all this crappy tasks that I'm never going to do. And I know I'm not going to do them, but if they're there, I'll look at them every day, and I'll be like, oh yeah, not doing that, not doing that, not doing that. Just get rid of them. Just set some time aside. Just delete them, clean it up. It'll make your brain feel way lighter.
Yeah.
And John Miller's sweet task thing will look even better, too.
Oh, yeah. That task was great when I was doing some user supportability stuff. So I was interacting directly with users, and every user I talked to, I had to open a bug so I could track, who they were, what their issue was. So I had 150 bugs on my plate, and I'm like, oh, God, this has to go away soon. That was intense.
Yeah. Cool. Does that satisfy you, Colby?
Yeah, that does. I've been going back and forth on whether or not I want to try OmniFocus or...
Well, you're on Android now, so it probably wouldn't be worth it. But I hear there are other ones that are actually cross-platform.
Yeah, that's...
Give OneNote a try.
There you go.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything like that. People have done GTD things and Evernote, anything that supports no, like a key value store that can be sorted into folders basically can be GTD.
Fair enough.
That's all you need.
Yeah, I think what I need is something that'll bother me at convenient times to like deal with it.
Yeah, and OmniFocus doesn't automatically do that, but I set calendar events for myself so they recur weekly so that I do them.
Use Outlook tasks as well. You can also set reminders for Outlook tasks.
There are tasks in Outlook.
Yep.
Whoa.
Outlook has everything.
I believe it. There's a lot of buttons, and I think I've clicked like 4 of them.
Cool.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah.
So let's move on to picks. I believe we are approaching the end of our hour slot. Any volunteers to go first? Anyone have a pick burning at the edge of their brain?
I can go first.
Okay, go for it.
Cool. So, Dan, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember sophomore year when I was doing that thing with Matt Johnson and the IBM people where we were like making an Android app?
Yep.
And do you remember how hard I complained about how slow the emulator was?
Vividly.
Yeah, it's really slow. And I hear it's gotten a little bit better, but it's still pretty darn slow. But nowadays, there's this cool thing called Genymotion, which is basically they run these Android VMs in VirtualBox on your computer, and it is super snappy. And they have this cool client that lets you download all these different Android images and stuff, so you can download basically any 4.x version of Android, and then a couple of the 2.x ones, which are basically, I mean, those are the versions that everyone uses. And it's like really amazing. I don't do Android development, but I do use it to test mobile web stuff on the Android browsers. And it's just fantastic because it's virtual, like, you know, VMware VirtualBox style, you can like suspend the machine. So when it starts up, it's just like, it's there from where you started. And you can also, one thing I learned recently is that like console.logs in the Android browser get outputted to ADB. So like you can connect your command line to the browser and see your console.logs, which is a huge improvement from like what I like to call window.alert driven development, which is like, I don't know, nobody wants to do that, right? So if you do
Except
Android,
I think that's how I bet that's how most people debug their programs. It's not window.alert, but it's error log or log4j.error or whatever it is.
Yeah,
that debugger stuff, that's so like 1998. We don't need that anymore. We've got error logs.
Well, I'll get to it in 2 seconds, but I have another like quicker pick. But in any case, the long and the short of it is that like if you do Android development or you need to test mobile browsers, you should check out Genymotion. It's free. They do have like, there is a paid one and you get more features in their simulator thing. But the free one does like everything I've ever needed it to do, and it's awesome. And my second pick is this week I discovered console.trace in the Chrome web tools, or really the Firefox web tools too, I assume. But you can basically print out a stack trace at any point, which is super useful. So
cool.
Yeah.
John Miller, do you have a pick for us this week?
So many picks. It's tough. I guess what I'd go with is a Process Explorer. Since I'm on the OneDrive and formerly SkyDrive team, I deal a lot with files and like a lot of native code. So I have to deal with processes running and who has an open file handle on what and all that stuff. So this allows me to kind of like look if I have a file open and we for some reason can't open it to sync it up to the cloud. It's nice to know who has this file open and why do they have it open, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of allows me to look at all the processes, what their working set is, who find a file, find a handle of the file, all that stuff. So that's really, really useful.
Just so you know, Alan talks this up in his OS class.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. And apparently someone wrote Process Explorer outside of Microsoft, just like figured out how the APIs worked, and then was subsequently hired by Microsoft to actually make this a real thing, which is incredible. But yeah, it's really cool.
Well, you'd be surprised on how easy it is to find out all those hidden API calls, and a lot of times we can't use them inside the company. So it's like we don't want to get sued, so we can't use a lot of these API calls.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Is that all you have, sir?
That's all I got.
All right. This is one that I'm pretty sure Colby knows about. But if you're using the Git version control system, which we talked about last week, and you're still messing around with ACRCs or grepRCs or appending all these flags so that you can search through the source code really efficiently to find a string that you're looking for, stop. Just RM your ACRC. I'm just kidding. I'm sure ACK is good for something. But if you're working in a Git repository, just use git space grep and type a string. Don't worry about flags. Don't worry about recursively going through direct. Just type git space grep space string, and it's practically instant, even on excessively large code bases.
It's not instant.
It's not, well, perhaps not ungodly large code bases, Colby.
Did you see the thing on Hacker News, like Facebook's web repository is like 58 gigabytes or something?
Yeah. Anyways, if you're working in any remotely reasonably sized database or code base, even one that's several gigabytes of data, Git grep is awesome. And it's way easier to use than ACK or regular grep, where you have to grep space -r space the thing I'm looking for space / none of that. Just git space grep space the thing you're looking for.
I swear you just said gigabyte.
I did say gigabyte. It's just a thing that it's always been with me. I think it was originally because I was riffing off of Back to the Future and the gigawatts.
Yes.
That's where that came from. But it's been so many years that I almost forgot how I came to be saying that. All right, Colby, you opened us up. You want to close us out?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. We're done. Woo! Yeah. That was another good one, I think. I'm John. I'm glad you joined us today.
But before we totally close it down, it looks like our esteemed producer wants us to mention that everyone should go to coffeeandbeer.tv/change mode, and that we'll be back Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, and that we're also on iTunes and Stitcher Radio.
Whoa!
So yeah,
fancy.
Cool. Yeah, I was totally gonna do that, except I didn't see the message.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll have you back sometime.
Yeah.
Soon.
I think we spawned
hopefully next time I'll push you guys back. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's fine. This was the original time that we were doing it at, and I don't even remember why we changed it earlier for Don't Panic anymore.
I think I wanted an excuse to leave work early.
Yeah. Sean says he needs sleep. But Sean, you have to jump back in with your voice so you can tell us how to do the tile read and all that fun stuff.
I would love to do that, Dan. Thank you.
But yeah, I think we spawned 5 new episode topics from this one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Send us out, Colby.
Well, you didn't officially say goodnight, goodbye. He kind of just trailed off.
Oh, sorry.
No, he did say goodbye, but he said that before I said the coffee and beer stuff.
Well, this is all going to make it in because I don't do post-production, so...
You're just the worst.
I am. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week on Change Mode.
Yeah, Change Mode.
This show is brewed fresh weekly by the Coffee and Beer Podcast Network. Get all our shows at our website, coffeeandbeer.tv.